name is Garrison. I work with Marshall Industrial, and we're developing a braze training process for new guys learning how to braze heavy copper bar. So what we're going to do first, we're going to go over what you should have on standby before you start. A nice pair of shears, scissors to do miscellaneous cutting. You want to have your copper pieces already prepared that you're going to be brazing together. You want alcohol for doing the chemical cleaning. You don't see this, but when you do these heavy bars, it generates so much heat on the torch that it actually makes the torch blow out on you. So if you're ever doing brazing and the torch is always popping and blowing out, it's going to be because the torch is getting real hot. We put the putty on because this is what happens to the torches without the putty, and even with the putty, you're only going to get so many braze joints if you use multiple torches, because the torches heat each other up and they actually start distorting, warping, and it causes burn back and blowout in the torches. You're going to want a grinder with a sanding disc for finishing up when the braze is done. For doing the preparation work, I like this orbital sander with a disc on, because that'll let you mechanically clean the surfaces real good. I'll put that on right now. Make sure you have a couple sets of gloves for doing your chemical cleaning. Make sure you have some latex gloves so you don't get any oils on the copper or the braze sheets or the filler rod you got to use. This is actually the braze sheet we have to do. This is 5 thousandths thick, and then we have filler rod for backfilling when we're done, because you're going to have a little groove around. You're going to want to backfill the joint all the way around. Fit up is very important, so I figured out we had to come out with an alignment gauge that we put on the braze joint to make sure that when it's clamped together, the surfaces aren't offset. You're going to want a pencil for marking your braze sheets to cut. You're going to need a clamp to clamp the joint together, a hammer for adjusting the fixture, and this is the fixture that we have for putting these sheets together. And what's going to happen is the finished product is going to go in like this. You align it with that one. This will go in. We'll gauge it to make sure it's right. Add our sheets, clamp it in and clamp it down so that you have tension on the braze sheet. So when the temperature is reached, it'll fuse the sheet and the two pieces of copper together. This will be what the finished product is when it's all brazed together. And I'm going to show you how to prepare it so that it'll pass the weld test, the brake test at the inspection team. What I'm doing is using the grinder, laying it flat so that I don't gouge into the metal. And I just surface rough it up and make it look pretty. Here's an important thing a lot of new guys don't understand about a test. When I'm done preparing this, you have to round all the corners, or when they bend it, it will break. So that when they bend this, that sharp edge on the corner doesn't cause a break. When you're done, this is what the piece is going to look like. You can see a light braze seam all the way around. And it's really important to have a 1/8 radius on all the corners. That's what the AWS says. It's good to have at least a 1/8 radius so that when it's bent, it doesn't cause a break right on those joint edges. Once you get ready to start working on your finished pieces, you got to put your gloves on so you don't get any oils on your hand onto the part. I mean, you're going to chemically clean it, but it still helps to minimize any oil that's left on there, because oil will cause the braze not to stick to the copper. Now we're going to use the orbital to roughen up only the edges around what we want the braze to stick to. And that's what it'll look like when it's mechanically cleaned properly. The mechanical cleaning is going to be the first thing you're going to want to do. Then you're going to want to chemically clean. If you don't spend time to do the preparation right, your joint will fail. Next we have to make our Braze filler sheets. Now, these are already made, but I'm going to go through the process again to show you how I did it. All of this Braze filler has a phosphorus built into it, so it'll do the final chemical clean of the copper. I don't like using regular flux on when I braze. I like using a sheet that has the cleaning compound built right into it. When it hits the right temperature, it'll float and it'll chemically clean the copper. Use a clean white rag, get alcohol on it. When you're sanding the copper, sometimes you'll see little fuzz that gets held on there. I forgot to tell you that it's always good to touch the edge with a little bit of sandpaper to make that disappear. Clean a couple of your rods just in case to make sure there's no oil residue left on there. So we're using this table. We got this from Trick Tools. It's called a fixture welding table. This is actually two smaller tables put together, and you get all these fancy drop-in clamps and these fixture holdbacks, and you also get these standoffs to work off of. Okay, I put the first piece of copper in. I keep it aligned with this machine block underneath of it to begin holding a true edge. And then you clamp it down because it's not going to move. We already have the secondary torch set up that once I get everything prepped and start heating, it's going to keep heat on this one bar all the time while I manually go around and manipulate the heat any way I want. Don't be afraid to change your gloves if you see dirt on them, like I just noticed, because it'll contaminate the surface you're trying to braze. What I found works effectively is I put the braze sheet in and I leave it. I've cut the braze sheet so it's a little bigger all the way around, and before I'm ready to braze, I will melt it back toward the surface so that I have a little more filler on around all the edges to start. Right now, you can see what happens when I use the full clamping force. All the joint does is slide apart and it's uneven. So right now I've got the secondary clamp ready. Tighten up the clamp. Now the bar is coming up to being parallel with the other bar. Now I have to adjust the two bars together. Tighten down the clamps holding the second fixture in. So it doesn't move. And the last one is to make sure we have good pressure down. After we're going to strike our torch, establish a neutral flame. If it blows out, I'll show you how to, sometimes when it blows out, fire burns back in here. And when you shut the acetylene off, you may have to turn the oxygen off, turn it back on again to blow out all the soot. And then you can relight it. Fixturing, we have to heat it up and get all the steel around the brass, the copper, warmed up so it doesn't draw too much heat out. And right now I'm helping the secondary torch warming up all the fixtures and standoffs. And then I'll move over and start on my side. Applying heat to the copper and to the metal parts that hold the copper. Color changer versus this one is only a light gold. It's going to turn gray and then black and then it's going to go red. When it goes red, you'll start to see the sheet that's in between. It'll start to melt and start running alongside the copper. So it tells you really quickly when it's ready to be brazed. Because you're almost not even going to see the red color, but you want to see that sheet start melting. The sheet is starting to melt. Now it's going to start flowing. It tells me the copper is almost right where I want it to be temperature-wise. First, and then I'll come up around each side, and then I'll tap the top, just to make sure we don't have any voids. So when it sets up, stop any more from dropping out. Then I'm going to hit the side that I'm on. Then I'm going to run over and tap this side. And I shut the torch off because I don't need it anymore to tap the top. Done. It's important you don't try to separate the joint right now because it'll just come right apart without the clamping forces holding it together. So you want to let this sit until you can grab it with a pair of gloves, which right now it's 2,000 degrees. I can't do that. Part of this weld test is it's a two-part qualification. We have to do a lap joint, which will get 2 of these bars and leave 1 inch open on each end. And they'll follow the same procedure I did over there with cleaning, clamping, double braze sheets in the middle, and then heating up and get it red, and then backfill. And what they'll do is they have to do a pull test on this where they pull it to shear to determine how strong it is.